Today on the show, we're launching a special 3-part series featuring the nonprofit organization City Year, where you'll hear more about the incredible work being done to help keep students in school and on track to succeed. In this episode, we're talking with George Meng. George has served on the board of City Year Seattle since 2005 and shares with us what it means to be a board member for a nonprofit organization and how he's inspired every day by core members and students. This is The Career Cue, the podcast focused on helping you navigate the signals in your career to keep you growing and moving forward in business and in life. Here's today's host, Stacey Harris.
So it's great to see you, George. Again, it turns out that we've actually met before and actually worked together.
Yeah, it's great to reconnect.
So, yeah, absolutely. And it's great to hear the work that you're doing with City Year as well. And I'm really excited to get into that today. And specifically, we're going to be talking to you about your role as a board member for City Year, and specifically City Year Seattle King County.
Great.
Yeah, great. So let's talk about how you were first introduced to City Year.
So I was brought on board by a former board member, and that's a typical way that people get recruited to boards. A good friend of ours, Dr. Susan Kim, she was a founding board member of City Year Seattle, and she had invited us to a fundraising event. And so I was completely new to the organization at that point in time. And so that during that evening, I learned a little bit about what City Year was, had a bunch of questions that I wanted to follow up with her. And so we started having this conversation about City Year. What was the organization? What was it trying to accomplish? What was her role in the organization as a board member? And what that essentially led to was an invitation to have a conversation with the executive director about my possibly coming on as a board member.
Interesting. So it really just started with attending the event and having a conversation.
That's right.
That's great. And it wasn't this huge intimidating process. It was just someone that you knew within your network.
Right. And that's really something that I think is common with boards. Board members, their job is to be a connector to the community, to use their personal and professional networks to raise awareness about their organization, to get the word out about what is it that their particular entity is trying to accomplish. And so I think this was just one of those things where, subsequently, I've done the same thing with other folks and brought them to different events with City Year. And that has ultimately, in some cases, led to their becoming board members.
So it's almost a pay it forward kind of situation.
Yeah, in some ways, yeah.
That's great. So actually, let's talk about what your criteria was. So you've been actually a part of the board for over 10 years.
Right.
Correct? So as you were going through these conversations and through this process, what was the criteria that you had at that time, or what is the criteria today that you'd recommend people consider when you're looking to engage with a nonprofit?
Stacey, I think that for me back then, it was a little bit more organic. I don't know that I had thought it out completely as to what was super important to me in choosing an organization that I might be serving on the board of. But I've thought about that a lot since then, and I think that one of the things that people need to determine is what is their passion, and is there alignment with their passion with the organization's mission? And that really has to be at the foundation of what is it that you might choose to become a part of. Beyond that, you have to think about, okay, what is the need in terms of the work that you can do for the organization? Is there a fit there? The organization may have different elements that they're trying to accomplish that you can be a part of. One may be fundraising, another may be marketing, another may be helping to craft and implement events. Another thing might be direct service. They might be engaging you in something where you go out yourself and you help do the actual mission with your hands and help execute what it is that the organization is doing. And so I think that you have to sort of look at the whole portfolio of what is the organization, what are their needs, and what are you passionate about. And I think those are the things where, the more that you can find sort of fit with those different elements, I think the better the actual fit is.
Yeah, because you're going to be able to find that longer term relationship, right? If there is that alignment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I do think that there's a little bit of analogy. I think that you have to kind of take it a little bit sort of slow, and then you have to maybe go on a few dates before you decide to go steady.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great idea. You have to get to know the other party before you actually decide that maybe you're going to be exclusive. Right. Yeah. So let's actually talk about the mission, the City Year mission, and what is the most meaningful for you as a part of that?
Well, City Year is really trying to tackle something very, very large and very critical for the, not to sound too lofty, for the country. And that is to help solve the high school dropout crisis. And this is really just it's a terrible problem, and it disproportionately affects students of color and students that have less financial means. And so it is a tragedy in that you have this large educational inequity. And so by working towards keeping kids in school, one of the things that City Year is trying to accomplish is to really reduce that educational inequity, and then also then create opportunities for these students to then go on to be more successful, possibly in college if that's their path, and then beyond as well.
So George, obviously over the last 10 years, you've seen the organization grow and evolve. What are some of the most significant moments that you've witnessed during that time?
So definitely City Year has evolved a lot over the time that I have been a board member. When City Year first started in Seattle, one of the things that we did was we recruited core members, as is the model of City Year, to engage youth in national service. And what we did was we had programs to help out in the community. And that might be at a youth center, it might be with a school, it might even be with a community center for, the Parks and Recreation Department. And it was really a little bit sort of all over the map. And one of the great things about City Year is that it's an organization that is looking to evolve and refine its impact. And so I think a little over 5 years ago, it's been that amount of time, that City Year really decided that it wanted to focus its impact to achieve the greatest amount of results. And this is when City Year as a national organization pivoted and started focusing in on the national high school dropout crisis, and really targeted its work to be solely within schools, working with students that were most at risk of dropping out. And City Year employed its resources to figure out how do we find those students who are most at risk. And in fact, our model is based on research that has been done at Johns Hopkins University, where we look at students in terms of their attendance, their behavior, and their course performance. And triangulating amongst those three, we're able to identify with a high degree of accuracy those students who are most at risk of dropping out. And so what we'll do is we'll have teams of core members, young people, so mostly recently graduated college students, and they'll work in schools, they'll work with classrooms at large, but we'll also pay special attention to these students that we've identified. We call them students that are on our focus lists, and we'll work with them mostly in English and in math, and to help them be at grade level and essentially be successful in staying in school.
That's fantastic. And so when we visited Highland Park Elementary School for a school tour, the principal had indicated that they do base a lot of their decisions on data. With the research from Johns Hopkins, the hard work has been done in order to be able to identify.
So absolutely, Stacy. I think that the data is an important component of what we do at City Year. Being able to measure our effectiveness, to be able to measure our impact, is something that enables us to essentially have a feedback loop to refine and evolve our programs such that they can be more effective. And there's another very, very important benefit of being very data focused and data driven, and that is that more and more our supporters, our donors, our investors, if you will, they very much care about what kind of results are you achieving, and being able to share those results in quantitative terms enables them to really see what it is that they're helping to bring about with their investment.
That's great. That's great, because without the community in supporting City Year, they're an integral part, right?
Absolutely.
In addition to the core members and in other parts of the organization?
I think that you bring up a great point. City Year, it is effective because of its partnerships. I mean, obviously there are folks that are helping to contribute from a financial standpoint, that being the individual donors as well as foundations, corporations. We get a tremendous amount of support from the U.S. government through AmeriCorps, but also we have these really deep partnerships with the schools and the school district, which enable us to do our work. Without that combination of support, we wouldn't be able to accomplish what we do.
What does it mean to be a board member in that respect? The responsibilities, the level of engagement, how does your role play into that?
So there's several different roles being a board member for City Year that are important. One of the roles is simply to be a fundraiser, and that is to help maintain and grow the sustainability of the organization from a financial standpoint. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I go out and I ask people directly for money. What it means is that I act as a connector, that I bring the sort of the news and the awareness of City Year to folks that I know personally and professionally, and expose them to what this organization does. And sometimes we do that through events that we'll have at schools, or we might have a particular gala that we would invite folks to, or different events where we're just engaging the community in educational topics and trying to be thought-provoking and, again, just to get greater awareness around the areas of education and education equity. So that's one thing, sort of being a connector. The other thing is also to help be an advisor to the organization at large. And City Year it is a business, and we're in the business of trying to help eliminate the dropout crisis. And as an organization, how can we best go about doing that? We have an amazing and wonderful staff here, but the board also has skills that we can bring. We are mostly folks that have careers and have professions, and what we do is we try and bring those talents to be an asset for the staff to be able to leverage and utilize as they shape and execute the mission of City Year.
And so would you serve almost as a mentor as well to the staff, and perhaps even to the core members as well?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that is great, and in terms of I'll call it a sort of a personal opportunity for me with regard to City Year, is that one of the things that I have loved in my own career is the opportunity to work with folks and to be able to offer sort of guidance, insight when possible, and to just be a team member to achieve a common goal. And what City Year does is it allows me, as well as all the board members, that opportunity to work with the staff, to work with core members directly, to, again, be a partner in trying to do the work that we're trying to achieve at City Year. And in fact, one of the things that we do is, for our board members, we offer each board member the opportunity to work and mentor directly one of the senior core members. And that means the core member who is in their second year of service with City Year. And that's just a great opportunity where you get a connection with somebody who is in the school, serving, working with our students that we're trying to serve, and getting a firsthand sense of what the work is that City Year is doing. And so it's a great opportunity for the board member as well as the core member to partner in ideas and actions. Well,
and because your target audience for core members are almost straight out of college,
right.
In the early 20s, just starting out their career, and as a board member, probably more well established in your career, and to be able to assist them in their journey and provide them with some insights that may be helpful in developing not only them on a daily basis as they go into these schools, but also looking ahead and what those opportunities might look like.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, our core members, of course, they're managed by our staff,
sure.
And so they have sort of management over them. But what the board member relationship, I call it this mentor relationship, is it's it's another person that they can go to and essentially bounce ideas off of, and they're not in their direct supervisory chain. And so that's sort of a nice thing. And I think it's a great relationship that happens between the board member and the core member. And I think it's a unique thing to City Year that we have, in fact, core members, and then that there's this opportunity for board members to engage in this way.
That's great. Well, so speaking of the opportunity for mentorship, one of the questions that we often hear from folks is, I don't know how what I do today in my job would be relevant for a nonprofit. And I think mentorship is just one of those transferable skills.
Definitely, I think that there are skills that you develop in sort of the corporate world that are directly applicable in the nonprofit world and helpful to any organization. And if you think about, most likely if you work in the corporate world, you're working in some sort of team. And the idea of collaboration and teamwork, that's something that in any organization, including the nonprofit space, that's an asset. And so your ability to navigate team dynamics and be able to, as a group, achieve results, I think that that's something that would be an asset and a skill that's definitely transferable and needed. The other thing is really it's about sort of goal setting and then striving for results. And again, in any corporate setting, goal setting is an important aspect of it. And certainly at City Year, we think a lot about, okay, what is it that we want to accomplish in a year's time, in 3 years' time, in 5 years' time. And then you have to think about, okay, well, it's great that you have those goals, but then what's the roadmap? What is the plan to get there? And again, we have a wonderful staff that is responsible for that. But as the board, we can be advisors and we can be an input to that. And so that set of skills that come from the corporate world, they're directly applicable to the nonprofit world.
That's great. So George, as we round out this conversation, I really want to make sure that folks listening today are able to take away one thing about City Year that you feel is important. So what do you think that one thing could be that folks could either learn about today or think more about?
So Stacey, I would say that City Year is working hard at and successfully at solving the high school dropout crisis, a big issue for our country. But we're also doing it in a unique and powerful way by engaging young people in national service. And I think that is the crux of City Year.
That's great. So the National High School Dropout Challenge is not about, well, I don't have a kid in high school or I don't know anyone that's being impacted by this, but ultimately we're all being impacted by this. I think there's an opportunity for each of us to just learn a little bit more about City Year and the fantastic work that's being done. So George, one last question as we close out today. Is there an action item that you would recommend? Is there one thing that you would encourage folks to look into or to start doing?
Well, with regard to City Year, I would welcome folks to learn more about our organization and the work that we're doing in Seattle. I would invite anyone to come and visit us at one of the schools that we're serving at and see these core members in action, working with side by side with students all day long, and how that's actually achieving really great results. And so we would love to host anyone for a visit at a school.
And we'll actually have more information in the show notes about all the different ways that you can engage with City Year, everything from fundraising to attending events to a multitude of other opportunities and projects that are available. It's all over the country. So 27 locations for City Year around the US,
right,
with some international affiliates as well.
Right.
So for the folks that are outside of the US, don't think that there aren't any opportunities for you. We'll actually have more information at thecareerq.com. And we love the work that's being done with City Year. We're truly inspired by the core members, by the staff, by the faculty, by the students, by the board. We're really excited to be able to provide a platform to get the message out about the incredible work that's being done. So thank you for your time today, George. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Stacey. Thanks for this opportunity.
All right.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Be sure to head on over to thecareerq.com where you can get more information, show notes, and related articles to today's topic. Also, if you like what you're hearing, head on over to iTunes, subscribe to the podcast, and make sure you leave us a rating and a review. We'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks again.
The Career Q podcast is produced by Lens Group Media in the lovely Seattle, Washington.